Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session, Advanced FlexBook Editing. I'm Lindsay, one of the CK12 team members, and my colleague Katie and I will be running today's webinar. Many of you joining us today are also participating in the CK12 Certified Educator Program. Many of you joined us this July for that. Just a reminder that the Certified Educator Program is completely free, and participants become certified when they attend 5 live webinar sessions, watch 2 on-demand sessions, and complete the 7 matching assignments. If you joined us for sessions this summer and are attending today to fulfill your requirements, please continue working in the Certified Educator Program July 2019 class. If you are brand new to the Certified Educator Program and you're thinking, I have no idea what she's talking about, I just joined a webinar today for the first time, welcome. If you want more information about getting certified, you can go to ck12.org/certified. You can press that register button and fill out the information form. You'll receive details about how to join the program and get started with assignments, because today's webinar would count as one of your 5 required live webinar sessions. At the end of today's webinar, we can discuss more about the Certified Educator Program for any participants with questions, or you can type Certified Educator questions in the Q&A window for our team to answer privately. Which brings me to the next slide, which is about Zoom. We're using the Zoom webinar platform for our webinar today. You should see 2 different windows, one that says Q&A and one that says chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK12, please post it in the Q&A window. That's the window that we check most frequently to make sure that we're answering any questions posted there throughout our presentation. The chat window is a place for community conversation. I don't think there's a little bit of activity right now. The trick to the chat window, though, is that by default, it only sends your messages to panelists. So only us here in Palo Alto, California, sitting in this room, would be able to see your messages. So we want that community or that chat window to be a community conversation where you guys send it to all panelists and attendees. We would love for you to introduce yourself, maybe even share where you live or what you teach, and feel free to talk to each other throughout this webinar in that window. Also, while we don't anticipate any technical issues during our broadcast, if you are having any trouble with your video or sound, please let us know in the Q&A or the chat window. We have created a resource page for each of our webinar sessions. You can find today's at the tiny URL listed on the screen or in the chat window right now. It's a tinyurl.com/CK12ADVFB2019 for Advanced FlexBooks 2019. Or you can also find it in our program FlexBook for anyone in the Certified Educator Program. You're welcome to print these resource pages or simply save them to use as a reference down the road. So I think it's time for me to pass the baton over to the main presenter today. So Katie, take it away.
Thanks, Lindsay. And thank you to everyone who joined us for today's session on Advanced FlexBook Editing. So in our Getting Started with FlexBooks and the 2.0 platform session, we cover the basics. That includes finding content on CK12, simple edits, and sharing your content with students and others. So if you missed that session and you're unfamiliar with our platform, I highly encourage you to watch the recording or join us when we offer that in the future or some variation of that session. So in this particular webinar, along with just a little brief review of those basic edits, we'll be covering the following topics: converting to and enhancing FlexBooks 2.0, so all the options to add in content, resources, practice, details, related modalities, all that fun stuff. Adding clarity and formatted equations, so links, headers, special characters, our math editor. Then incorporating, formatting, and citing images, including our license and attributions, inline figure, and other options. And finally, embedding videos, interactives, inline questions, and more. So there's a lot that we cover in this session. We're going to go through it fairly quickly. You always have this as a reference or that great handy resource sheet that Lindsay just mentioned. But hopefully this will give you a kind of that understanding of all the options you have as you customize and enhance your FlexBooks on CK12.
Just to kickstart things, I think we will launch a poll right now. We would like to hear from all of you answers to 2 questions. The first question you see on the screen right now says, did you join us for the Getting Started with FlexBooks and the 2.0 platform webinar? That's a pretty easy one. You either did, you didn't, you joined us live, or you watched a video of the session. And then the second one's a little more involved. It says, what experience do you have with using and customizing CK12 FlexBooks? And here you can select all that apply. So you're going to tell us if you're new, or we've got all these different options for what you have done to FlexBooks. So we're going to kind of give you another 20 or 30 seconds to lock in your answers. And then we are curious, kind of the skill level and experience of the participants online today. So we are about 60% of the way there with those of you who voted.
While we're wrapping up at that, I'll just make a note. It sounds like a couple of you guys are having a little bit of spotty audio. We're not hearing that on our end. We will record and post this recording for you by tomorrow. So if you need to go back and check anything, feel free. Hopefully your internet connection improves and you are good to go. But if there's anything you need us to repeat, just ask us a question and we will follow up.
Okay, I think most of you have had a chance to vote, so we're going to go ahead and end the poll, and we'll share the results with everyone here. All right, Katie. So a lot of people joined us for the first webinar session, which is great. Again, I think it's helpful. If you haven't, you might just have a little bit of catching up to do here right away. And then the second question that we're maybe a little more interested in, 44% of you are new to FlexBooks, but then the other half of you have made basic edits, and some of you have, done some other things to your book. So I think that's great. I think this is the perfect group for today's webinar. I think that's a great experience level. So let's see, let's go on here. So we're going to be refreshing a few points about the basic customization of FlexBooks and FlexBooks 2.0. But mainly we're going to be focusing on the advanced components of the particular webinar. So you can click Customize. Let's see, this is just a review of the basic skills here. You can click Customize to start this process, or from your library choose Create New Modality. You can delete and reorder content by using the X and using the drag arrows to reorder. You can add content via the menu within the editor or when browsing on CK12. You can also edit existing content using the pencil edit icon. And then we give you the option to share your FlexBooks. You can share via a URL, CK12 classes, an integrated LMS, a PDF download, which we don't recommend because it's all interactive and exciting online now, or the share menu. You can also use the Assign button on any FlexBook 2.0 lesson to quickly assign the content and matching practice to your CK12 or Google class if you want to see reports on student progress. All right, so let's jump into the more advanced topics on converting and enhancing FlexBooks 2.0.
Thanks, Lindsay. So in order to start that, if you don't have a single FlexBook 2.0 that you want to start customizing, you can take content from one or more 1.0 or 2.0 FlexBooks and you can add them to your new book, or you can even start one from scratch if you want. Then once you have a book, you're going to make sure that your attributions are up to date, and you can even add in additional resources. Next, if each lesson is tagged to a math or science concept on CK12, you will see matching practice. You can swap that out for practice from another concept. Let's say you've changed the topic in that particular lesson, or you can add a quiz if you've made a special quiz, especially if you're creating content from scratch that we might not have practice for already. And then finally, you can remove or add related modalities. This includes videos, interactive, study guides for each of your 2.0 lessons. So I think with that, I am going to share my screen. And we're going to go from there. So we can pull that up and we can see what happens. And we will start with going to the CK12 site. So let me pull that site up. And we have this option. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this new teacher landing page, engaging students and saving time. And let's say that I want to start by combining content from Algebra 2 and maybe pre-calculus. Maybe I explored our site. So I can kind of go down here and say I'm going to start with our nice new Algebra 2 2.0 Flexbook. I'm going to take that content. Because I want all of this content to start with, I can simply choose to customize this as my starting place. So if I wanted to take this book and I wanted to make it my own, I could click that customize button. And then I could say interactive algebra plus, because I know that I'm going to do this particular thing and we're going to include maybe some algebra and maybe some pre-calculus and pieces in here. So I'm going to save this. And then you want to make sure that you only ever have one tab open that you're working with. So right now I'm in edit mode. I'm going to go explore CK12. So I'm going to save my edits, kind of cleanly go out of there. And now I can use this nice new search bar that is brand new this week up within there. And I could start searching and I could say, let me maybe pull some stuff from pre-calculus. So I could go and explore a particular topic there. Or I could click on this explore button and maybe look at our various flexbooks, or even subject areas. So let's pull up, however I pull other resources from, you can explore the site and kind of see what you have to work with. I'm going to open one of our pre-calculus books. So you can see we have some math analysis and a pre-calc book. And I want to add a chapter for my higher level students on finance. So there is a little bit of a distinction between our 1.0 and 2.0 in that our 1.0 has kind of a chapter level options as well. Our 2.0 is kind of the section or the whole book. But if I want to pull content from an original book into our newer platform, I can actually pull that whole chapter in one shot. So I'm on this finance chapter and I want to add this to a flexbook. And this would be a way that I could create a new 2.0 textbook. I could kind of convert the whole pre-calc book over by doing that and create a new one. Or I could add this to that book that I was working on, that interactive algebra plus book. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to there. And then any book that I'm working on and I'm editing with, I can always find in my library. So let's go to my library. And the first thing in there is the most recent thing I was editing. And so here we should be able to see within that book the chapters from the original algebra book. And at the very end, this new chapter 7 on finance. So that way I was able to kind of combine content from there. And if I go to that details page, you'll notice that because I started and I customized the Algebra 2 book, it's kind of tagged to Algebra 2 here, but I only added a chapter from pre-calculus. So maybe I need to add some other pieces there. So I'm going to actually double check that book kind of one more time. I'm going to open that book up in a new tab just for a second because I'm just looking at resources, but I'm not editing anything in here. And I'm going to check that, and we're going to see in that attributions, it looks like we have kind of a longer thing, and we have an author and an editor, so Mark and Caitlin Spong. So I want to make sure that I kind of add that author and editor in here because I'm combining different pieces. So if I have this book, I own this book, I can now edit it. And I can go in and I can add any other details I want. So I'm going to make sure that I start by kind of adding in the author. I'm going to add in an editor. And CK12 wrote the Algebra 2 one, so that's going to get to stay there. But maybe I'm going to add analysis as another math kind of area, or even some calculus stuff in there. I could add any subjects. And then I'd probably want to change like this thing. So top level algebra course with finance. Any other details that you want to add, you're more than welcome to kind of change that and go from there. So let's save those updates as we go through. And now I want to look at the actual lesson level piece. So I'm going to go in. I could have actually stayed kind of in edit mode and gone over and picked an individual lesson. But I want to check out a lesson. So there's two ways to go ahead and do that. So I can open a particular lesson. So let's say trig, section 1. I can edit that with that little pencil edit icon. I can leave the title as is, or I could change it if I wanted to, but right now let's leave it as is. And I want this title on revisiting right triangle trigonometry. And in 2.0 lessons, you'll see 4 tabs. So the standard 3, the edit one, if I uploaded a resource, in this case, there happens to be an answer key from the pre-calc chapter that part of this content came from. and then details from here, and then our related tagging. So in all of our new 2.0 books, we've actually tagged other resources. So here you can see an additional read for students. This little world thing is a real world application, so kind of how it applies, a couple videos, and it looks like 3 of our Plix interactives that all fit in there. So I could actually kind of change any one of those, or I could add a new modality. And you'll notice that I could add content from here, so CK12 content. The things that are already checked off are already kind of added in there. Or I could add something else that I created in my library, or a quiz. So I could replace this particular topic with any quiz that I did, and this will replace that practice with that quiz. So some options to kind of edit within there. I would definitely say, as we said, this is super quick, but go ahead and explore that related modalities tab and see what your options are, and if maybe you want to add and curate a little bit different modalities from there. If I had made any changes, I would save those changes. I didn't really change anything, so those go there. Now, if I click save and I'm back in the regular mode of this book, and I want to navigate down to that same section in trigonometry. So I have already made this section my own. It lives in my library. You can see these are that curated modalities we were talking about, those other ways to learn as you go through. And if I click start on this, you'll see that because it was a math concept we had already created, that in the bottom right corner, there's a view practice button. If I click on that, I have 3 options. I can preview that practice, see what kind of types of questions students would get. I could swap that practice out for a different practice, maybe a different concept if we had changed the content significantly, or I could switch it to a quiz. And that switch to quiz gets me to that same quiz menu from within that piece. And I could pick any of these options to swap that out. So polynomials, or I think I did a demo, let's say here, and I could swap that out, add it back in. Now I have a quiz, or let's just swap it back to that practice because that quiz probably didn't match. So now my kids have practice there. If for some reason, let's say I go to the next section, which I hadn't already customized, and I click view practice, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask me to save it. And basically it's just kind of saving that section in my library as well. And then I can go ahead and make those updates from there. So something to be aware of, kind of the 2 big things that I was showing you here were the ability to pull from different resources, whether 2.0 or our original content, and add them into one of our new books. And then when you're in there, to swap out practice or to swap out other learning resources. So videos, interactives, real world applications, and whatnot. So with that, I'm going to go back into that editor for a second. So we're just going to kind of cancel out of here. You can navigate through the table of contents using these little breadcrumbs back to kind of the book itself, or here in our table of contents. But I'm going to just go straight back to the original book. And I want to go in and I want to edit a section. So you can actually see me kind of play around with the actual editor and add some different pieces within the editor itself. So for time reasons, let's pick that same section so I don't have to create a new one and make a new copy. And let's talk about some options within that particular piece. So you'll see at the top here, kind of if I click into any normal paragraph, your standard text options, bold, italics, underline, so super and subscripts. I can pick some text color options, some highlighting color options. We have a few format options, so our section headers here. So right there, section 2, section 3, kind of are these big section headers or standard paragraph options. Bullets in numbered lists, all those kind of standard pieces. But we're going to go through some different ones as we go through here. I want to start with kind of our special characters menu. So this is a math section. So there's definitely going to be some resources in here. You can see sine and angle. Let's say I just wanted theta in this paragraph. I accidentally deleted that. I could use our math editor, or I could say, let's use our special character menu. And some basic special characters are there as well. And I could just put that kind of theta back in there. So you'll get a slightly different formatting between our special characters menu and our math editor, but that is available there as well. Let's say we are writing a discussion and we're talking about those different pieces, maybe all the way down in some sort of summary. We scroll further down, get some interactives, and then review. So before that review, I'm going to add a summary section, or key information. So key ideas when solving And I want to add in just a reminder about, let's say, the Pythagorean theorem. That's a useful one to have when you're solving math equations, and I'm going to use our math editor. If I start from scratch, I have the option to use our drop-down menu. So you can see when this loads up here that there's kind of 3 places here, there, here, and here, the preview at the bottom. So if I'm starting at the top, and I just want kind of a squared, I want some sort of something raised to a power. So x squared just gives me an x squared option. But if I want anything in here, I can say I want a to the second, and then I want plus, same deal, b squared equals c squared. And I can kind of fill all of that in knowing nothing about coding at all. You'll see that it kind of populates the code piece right in there, and I can even preview and see what that looks like. So that works in line, would just show up in line with whatever text you had there. Block math would center that. Align at would get you kind of at the beginning piece. When you forget all this, it has a little pop-up which kind of tells you a little bit more about what's happening. But the one thing you want to know is that if you open an equation that already exists, or you start playing around with stuff here, that you can't use our kind of preview drop-down part except from scratch. It only works in one direction. It populates the LaTeX coding. It doesn't go the other way. But you're welcome to kind of play with the editor if you know pieces, or use our drop-down, or reach out to us if there's something you're trying to find. Or I often, when I first started, said, oh, I need this extra thing. I'm going to add it in code, and looked it up. So plenty of options. When I add that in, you can see I chose block math, so it shows up in the center there. And then I was able to have it available. So quick little piece about the math editor, not super big, but something to kind of keep in mind. You can see below this that you have a table right here. So that table option, I could add new tables in. I could see my table properties. Let's say I wanted some sort of table caption option, piece above, include the border or not. This adds a review problem option. So some options for tables. Your standard hyperlinking is available, removing links piece. And then kind of a couple other things just to be aware of that I discovered that I thought were awesome. So let's say I wanted to put this equation. When I used to teach math, all of our equations were in these like blue call-out boxes in my original text. So if I wanted to do that, I could use what we call our element box, which is available right here. And I could say, here's your Pythagorean theorem. And then I could have put the same math editor option within that particular piece. And then the other kind of extra formatting piece, if I removed that piece, I could use our definition list. So our definition list is right here. And I could say some key terms are trigonometric ratio, and then the definition. So relates to an angle to a ratio of 2 sides of a right triangle. And then I can kind of navigate using my backwards and forwards to get back through here. And indent inside, side opposite, and so on. Or I could simply kind of, if I was outside of that, add in another list, and it would add in that new term. So there's a little bit of extra formatting as you work your way through here. This great thing right here puts it in full screen if you want to see it in full screen. I usually find it fairly easy to kind of work with in this particular piece. But those are just a few extra call outs. For the most part, you can figure that out. If you have questions, you can always open up our Are You Stuck there and in the math editor. But I just wanted to make you aware of not only the related tab with those related modalities that I could remove or keep or add in, but also the actual text options within a particular section.
I just want to remind all of you that you're welcome to type in any questions that you have for Katie into the Q&A window as you're presenting. So far, the questions have been a little specific about content we offer and things like that. So I think we're gonna keep going, but just know that I'll interrupt Katie and pause as you guys have questions of things that you need her to clarify. So I'm going to steal the screen back. And actually the next thing that we're going to do before we start talking about the core content of the next section. So it's a good time to put any questions in the Q&A that you might have. We want to show you 2 short videos of teachers who are customizing FlexBooks to best meet the needs of their students. So the first clip that you're going to see is of a social studies teacher, Jonathan Woods. And he's from Tullahoma, Tennessee. And then the second video that you're going to see is Jessica Favela Casillas, who's a chemistry teacher in El Paso, Texas. So let me play the video for you.
My favorite thing about it is you can update, change content, adapt to what you need for that classroom. If I have some content on there that I think is not working, or the students don't like, or that I don't like, that it's just, for whatever reason, it's not working the way I thought it would, I can find other stuff and use other stuff to change those chapters and change the format of everything. I can also upload videos anytime I want to there, upload any pictures that I need on there, any other resources, you know, as needed. So that's what I like the most, but I can kind of form it the way I want to.
We were asked to reorganize the FlexBook that was already there and adapt it completely to EPISD and our curriculum, our scope and sequence. We added things that were student-friendly, we added videos, and I think that was a really good experience because as a chemistry teacher, I knew what my kids were needing as far as a textbook, as far as content went. And I could rely on the textbook to have videos and interactives and any kind of visual that I thought they needed that they couldn't get in a standard textbook.
All right, I hope it was helpful to just hear from a few educators who are out there in the field using our FlexBooks. The next topic we're going to cover is using images in CK12.
Thanks, Lindsay. So let's start by just talking about the pop-ups that you get when you want to edit or insert an image. We updated this a little while ago, so if you haven't edited in the last couple of months, this might be an unfamiliar new version of our piece. On that first tab, you want to make sure you upload that image. So as you go through that choose file, we highly recommend, because if you put a URL in, websites change all the time, and so you might end up with a broken URL, that image doesn't show up. So we definitely recommend that you upload that image cleanly. Below that, you'll see options for noting the license and the source or credit for any image. We are kind of openly licensed under CC BY NC, which is our Creative Commons license, but you do need to attribute that. BY means that I need to attribute my content. So make sure that you fill in that particular piece. And then the next tab over is that options tab. You'll see choices for the type of image, alt text, and more as you go through. So I'm gonna steal this back and we're gonna go from there so you guys can hopefully see my piece. And we're gonna start from, let's say, a new book. So let's go back to the home page. And I want to do something from physical science. So I could explore via my subjects browse as I go through. I'm gonna pick a physical science book. And I could pick any particular section I wanted in here. So I don't know, let's say chapter 12 or maybe 13. We're gonna pick the one on pulleys because I have an image for that I wanna add in. And I can go in here and I can work from here. So I actually need to edit this particular section. So the first thing I would need to do is go to the book as a whole and customize that book so that I have the ability to edit. And then I'm gonna put for demo in October. And I'm gonna go down to that same section and I'm gonna edit that particular section. So I'm gonna click that pencil edit icon. I like the title pulley, so I will keep that title as is, and that will kick me into the particular section. So a couple things to note. For within headers, kind of your media thing grays out. So sometimes if you don't have full access to stuff, you wanna make sure that you have are clicking in normal text. That'll become super important in the next section as well. But I highly recommend kind of outside that header because an image in a header doesn't make much sense. I can click on this. I could edit this by clicking on that image icon. And you'll see here that the source is CK12, Zach Wilson, who was an amazing intern we had. This photo came from him. So it has content in here and some image options as we go through here. Now, let's say I accidentally deleted this, or I wanted to put in my own image. I could also start from scratch. I could insert an image. I'm going to choose that file. I am going to pull that up, and you'll see that we get that same image in here. I can kind of preview it and see it working. And I need to make sure that I do the source and credit. So in this particular case, because this is CK12 and this is kind of my in-house thing, I would say I hold the copyright for it and I can fill it in. If it was a third-party image I was pulling from somewhere else, you'd want to make sure that you put I do not hold the copyright, and then note which of the image licenses it falls under. Is it something that's in the public domain? Is it something that's CC BY or CC BY SA? Stuff that's commercially licensed is not allowed in our site, so just double check where you're pulling content from. But in this case, I'm going to put I hold the copyright. The source is CK12 because it came from us, and we will give Zach his full credit because he is the photographer. And then because I'm uploading this, just as a note about our license and making sure that since I hold the copyright, or my organization does, that we're putting it in there correctly, and that gives full permission for that particular piece. Now I have an insert option and it will insert accordingly. Now, if you look here, it inserted this really big image in this whole big box, and that's because I forgot to check on the next section. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to open it up one more time, and I'm going to go over to those image options. It is a figure. That gives me that option to put a caption in here. So I could put Zach's pulley in here. I could even put that alt text. So it's a pulley over a skyline, just so I have a little bit of description there for anything that's reading it out loud. And I could choose the size. So let's put a thumbnail. This will make it super small, and I can insert it again. So you can see this little image, that little caption I have here. If I save this and hovered over it, that alt text would show up. If I went back to there and I changed that and I said kind of the figure, still good, but I want a full page, note that that page is based on width. So if you have a really tall image and that you pick the page width, it's going to take over the whole page, and it might even actually go off the top of a page if you ever ended up printing this for some reason. So just keep in mind that everything is based on width. But let's change this to an inline image. So it grays out all of this stuff that's not really relevant, and I get to pick a width. Yeah, let's say like 300 pixels wide might be reasonable, and I'm going to put it in there. That might still be a little big. It did keep my caption as regular text for me, but I don't necessarily need that, so I can remove it. And I might even make that even smaller in here, and let's say 200 pixels wide, because I just wanted kind of the idea of it as I start. So super fast version of that. Again, I'm just going to click on it and remind you as I go through, I recommend that you choose a file and upload it cleanly. You do need to note that who holds the copyright for that and make sure it includes the correct content. And then you can pick your image options as you go through and work your way through that piece. So looks like we're doing okay with Q&A. So I'm going to just keep going through from here. Oh, we got one question coming in. So let me pause for a sec.
Yeah, we did get a question related to an LMS. This user asked, if I create a FlexBook 2.0, can I access that material from Canvas? Up until this point, I've only pulled from FlexBooks 1.0 as it seems to integrate with well with Canvas. So give them a status update on how our books are playing with the LMSs right now.
Yeah, our 2.0 books are available in Canvas and Schoology these days, and as well as Google Classroom. Those are kind of the three learning management systems that we are fully integrated with in that regard. So you can assign content from there. When you're in Canvas and Schoology, you would just, instead of looking at the core CK12 content, if you made your own book, you'd click on the library piece and find your content there, and then you can assign sections accordingly. So go for it.
Okay, we're going to kick back over to the keynote for a minute and talk about embedding videos and interactives and inline questions. So give me just 1 second to pull this up. All right, there we go. Keep the questions coming into the Q&A window as you have them.
So you can embed various types of multimedia. So that includes things like videos from YouTube or other platforms. You could embed simulations from CK12 or elsewhere that launch in a kind of a new window as you go through. Our interactive clicks allow students to explore content right within the lesson if you do kind of just the interactive frame, or it'll also launch out for the full Plix experience as you're working through there. And you can even do other media. So Google Slides might be an option. Just make sure that if you're embedding anything like that, that you're not including copyrighted material that you end up accidentally sharing through those slides. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you go through. The next option that you have for embedding pieces and using that media option is that you can attach a quiz. That was the way I showed you to start with. I could change that practice and swap that practice out for a quiz. Or the new option as well, we have an inline question option. So I could create a quiz, I could make some of my own questions and have those be within a lesson. And that doesn't work as a standard quiz, so just keep that in mind. Students have multiple attempts to answer that question correctly. Progress can't be kind of assigned or reported. It's really a chance for them to get immediate feedback as they're learning particular content and do some practice right within the actual lesson, but it's not acting as a full quiz. So just kind of keep that in mind as you go through. So I think with that, I am going to go ahead over and see our option for what that looks like in our site. So let's use the same particular section we already have it open and we can go through. You'll see within here that this is our little embedded media icon. So if I click on that, it will pull up this particular piece. It looks like it's a video from YouTube. So I'm actually going to just pull up this YouTube video option right here and see what that looks like. I can actually, if I needed to open it as well, I could go to YouTube, simple machines, and we could see all sorts of different options. I might even pull the actual code for that machine and see if I can pull that particular one up from here. If not, I can always save it and do things, but perfect. So
Jared, welcome to Fun.
And that's the lesson. So as I pull that particular thing up, if I wanted to put in the same video, great. If I wanted to swap it out for a new video, I could pull up any video I wanted from YouTube. That would be pretty straightforward. When I click share on YouTube, you can pull this nice little YouTube link. And so if I just copy this link as it was, or click the copy button, instead of trying to highlight it like I just did, and I accidentally deleted this, our system, if I place a YouTube video, will automatically embed it. It kind of assumes that if you want a video that you would like the students to be able to see that video. So it automatically embedded this video right there. But if I needed to for something else, or even for this particular video, instead of doing that option for this particular link, I could pull the actual embed code. So I'm going to do that one other way as we go through here. And that is that I'm going to go back to YouTube. And instead of using the copy option, I'm going to click the embed option. And the nice part about that is that when you click embed, I could actually say, I love this video, but my kids don't need to see the first couple of minutes of it. Maybe I want to start this video at here. And then I could pick that up and I could actually reset the start time frame if I wanted to. But regardless of how I do that, I'm going to pull that embed code. And then I am going to click on that media option. Remember, if it's in header, it'll be grayed out, so it needs to be in regular text. And I'm going to place the embed code in that frame. If I place embed code directly in my text, it'll just come up as weird text. But in that frame, and you can preview it and see that you have this video kind of inserted back in there, and it's now available to work off of. So two options for YouTube. One is to paste the YouTube link directly. That's the clean YouTube copy share link. And the second option is to pull the embed code from YouTube and paste that within our particular piece. So something to kind of keep in mind as you go through. So I'm going to close that window. I'm going to actually open up another one on CK12 for just a second so that you guys, we can pull some other content and show you what that looks like. In our modality page, I have some pulley pieces here. I have some other options here. In the related tab, you can see that I have a sim option here and a pulley option there. Sorry, a Plix option on pulleys there as well. Now there's a couple different ways that I could get to that. I could get to that by finalizing my edits. So if it already exists in there and I wanted to embed it directly and not as a related piece, I wanted it kind of in the lesson itself. For our Plix and Sims, this nice little toolbar on the top right, I can expand, look at that related content, and I could actually open this simulation, or I could go back and I could open this Plix Interactive. And from there, I could, let's say, go to the sim for a second. It's loading that simulation. In this nice little menu option on the top right, there is an option to embed. That gives you the same type of embed code that you get from YouTube. So I would use that same embed code to embed that directly in, and it would look like this nice little frame, that launch option on the left. In a Plix Interactive, I could do the same thing. So I could do this and I click embed, and there are two options. There's our basic Plix option and our complete Plix option. So I'm gonna just pull the basic Plix option for here. I'm gonna copy that to my clipboard. The complete option would pull this whole Plix, including the challenge questions, the description, that interactive frame as you go through. But whatever that looks like, we're gonna go back here to our book. I'm gonna click edit, and then I'm gonna jump back into that particular section, just so we can keep working with it and actually embedding that content in there. So as we edit from here, I am, as I said, remember, I pulled that basic piece. So I'm gonna say, to start, try out this Plix Interactive. And I'm gonna pick my nice little, it looks like I'm still somehow or another in regular text, so I'm gonna put it right in here. You can preview that and you'll see that it looks like this, just that interactive piece, and I'm gonna insert that accordingly. And so as we go through, I could have my Plix Interactive. I'm gonna add a couple more things in just while we're talking here so that I don't have to keep going back and forth from saving to opening to saving to opening. But I embedded a Plix Interactive. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I could also embed inline questions. So let's open a window for a second and pull some stuff up. So our new search bar that's here as well, I could search kind of within one of our 2.0 books, or I could simply search for content across our site. So a pulley in all of CK12. And I actually made a quiz already on pulleys. So instead of looking at the pulley content from there, I'm gonna go to my library, because this is a really quick, easy way to pull through stuff. It looks like we have a couple of reads on pulleys over the time, but I'm gonna pull up my quiz. And I want to show this as inline questions. So I made this quiz with 8 questions. We do whole sections on kind of customizing practice and making quizzes and making your own questions, but I've pre-made this quiz already. And once again, those embed codes just kind of expand your menu option. And this gives you a little more information about what inline questions are if you forget. But I'm going to click the embed as inline questions. And then I'm going to pull this embed code from there. And we're going to say, practice these questions. So summary review, start by trying out these questions. And I could put them here, or I could put them kind of in the lesson as they go through and understand what that looks like. So I have some embed code options here. And then let's do one more. We talked for a split second about kind of Google Slides options. So let's say I made a presentation for Google Slides. This one literally has nothing else in it but a cover slide, so this clearly will not have copyrighted information in there, so that's not a big deal. But as we go through this particular piece, I can hit File, and it should be published to the web right here, and then I could embed this. So I could pull this embed code. So from a technical perspective, anything that has an embed code can be used within here. From a licensing perspective, just make sure that it fits our license. So, final review. See this presentation. And then I would once again put that embed code in and insert that in there. So all of these are options for embedding media. Now let's finalize this particular section, and you can actually see what it looks like on the front end. For you and for your students, they're going to see the same read text that you share within here. So we had this image that we added in there with all that attribution resources there. We have this pulley. So for that basic Plix Interactive, it kind of puts the description here at the top. And then students can actually interact with this directly within the lesson. It doesn't launch a new window. It just kind of works from there. We have that video I put back in there that kept playing as I kept trying to switch over. We have a simulation that was already embedded. And so this one, I didn't have to kind of add that in, but I can launch that in a new window. So the students will see that as it goes through and shrink that back down again. And then this is that inline question piece. So I'm going to guess, having read nothing else, that this section's on pulleys. So that might be a good guess on a simple machine. But let's say a student got something wrong as they work their way through. Of course, I'm getting, really? There we go. So oops, that's not the right answer. They can try again. So maybe a movable pulley changes the direction. Go ahead and they would try it again. So often there's hints or extra information as they go through. And then that final piece is that slide presentation that we put in there. So all of those are available as embed options, just making sure that you're pulling content from our site or you're putting in content or images that fit within our license. So I think with that, maybe we'll stop for a minute and check out some Q&A and go from there.
The one question that we have in Q&A right now is, once you finalize a draft, can you go back in and edit it again?
Yes, I think I've done that twice already in today's webinar because I kept opening and closing this particular section. So you can always edit your content. So the finalize just takes the difference and pushes it out to students who are accessing that content. So if I went into this particular section and I made a bunch of updates on it, and I clicked the save as draft option, that's a great example for, let's say I wrote half a sentence and I got a phone call and I needed to talk to a parent instead of kind of continuing to do work in here. So this keep as draft option is just for my internal draft. The finalize draft option means that I finalize it, I push it out, and anyone with access to that book, whether I have published it on CK12 and it's available for other people to see, or my kids are accessing that, or I'm working with colleagues and they want to see what I've been working on, I need to finalize that content and then others can see it outside of kind of the person who owns that content. But I just did it again. I can finalize it now and I can go back and do this whole process again tomorrow or in 10 minutes if I need to. So I think before we turn that over to Lindsay, I'm going to do kind of two last things that I want to share with you just here. So first is publishing your FlexBook. I did mention that just briefly, but I kind of want to talk about how and why you might do that. So under that choose option on your 2.0 FlexBooks, you want to click that option and click publish as soon as you're ready to share that. So then what happens? Once you click publish, your book, or if you do this on, read that you made separately, or a real world application or a video you put in there, that becomes accessible via search. That means that search bar that I was looking for, where it had kind of CK12 content and community content and my library, that now becomes available for everyone via search. Then why would you do this? So we have hundreds of thousands of versions of FlexBooks on our site, and a subset of those are published. By adding to those, other users are able to access those resources. They can make changes. We have like a district in Texas that made all these amazing books outside of STEM, and then another district in Texas that said, that's a great place to start. I'm going to grab your stuff and add to that. And then they could collaborate from there. And so it just kind of adds to the available resources for others and kind of gives back to that community. And then the last thing is that we have a schools page. So in order to publish content on your schools page, you do have to publish it first. And the advantage to adding it to a schools page is that students or parents or everyone can find all of the books. If your district is our school is doing a larger set of FlexBooks on our site, that's a really easy way to make them accessible. So you can see the district I was talking about in Texas is on the left there, El Paso Independent. Coeur d'Alene in Idaho has a bunch. But if you go to ck12.org/schools, you'll see resources others nearby you might have already made. And then at the top, we just launched recently a Can't Find Your School button. So if you can't find your school and you want to add your school to this page, just click on that, click the Add My School, and it'll open up a form, and we will get you a page up and running. One for your school or district, so kind of the point person that's going to run that and manage it would be the one to do that. And that would continue to add to those resources that you and others can access and build from and share with your class. So we are more than happy to continue to answer questions. We're going to do a little bit of wrap up because I don't think we have any in Q&A right now. And then we'll go back and stay on for any final questions.
Okay, so last call for questions, but the few things that I want to remind you of right now is that we do have a resource page that covers some of what Katie talked about today and just kind of quick reminders about the capabilities and possibilities with the FlexBooks 2.0. So if you need to check that out, here's the link again at tinyurl.com/CK12ADV-FB2019. We have a bunch of webinars coming up in October and November. We have the more advanced adaptive practice session on October 16th called Customizing CK12 Adaptive Practice and Assignments. We have an LMS breakout session. Notice that our LMS breakout session on Google Classroom and the one at the bottom on Canvas and Schoology, these are shorter sessions and they don't have that CK12 badge next to it. The Certified Educator badge, because they do not count as one of the requirements for your 5 live webinar sessions. But for those of you who are trying to string together enough to get certified, the Customizing Adaptive Practice and the Common Core Math on CK12, those would count toward what you need to complete the program. All of these webinars are available now on ck12.org/webinars. You can also view any of our archived webinars on that page as well. All right, unlike those LMS breakouts, the LMS breakouts are, just a quick reminder about those, they do not count towards certification, but today's webinar session does count as one of your core sessions. So about our program, if you joined our July 2019 class, you already have access to the class and assignments. Please continue to complete all of your work there. If you're brand new to the Certified Educator program and want more information, go to ck12.org/certified and press register. If you still have additional questions for our team, you can access us about Certified Educator program questions specifically at jumpstart@ck12.org. But we hope more of you will get involved or finish your certification if you've already started. We love to get some feedback. If you have just 1 minute, 2 minutes right now to do a short survey for us, we would love to hear what you had to say. It is the tinyurl.com/CK12feedback1920. Just a short survey letting us know what went well and what we could do better for next time. So we are waiting to see if any question pops up real quick. If not, we're just going to thank you again for joining us today. And we just want to assure you that you will always be supported by our team at support@ck12.org. Also, don't forget to let your social networks know about CK12 and your participation in either the Certified Educator program or at CK12 Foundation, what you are enjoying, what resources, what's working for you. So on behalf of the CK12 team, we want to thank you for joining us today. And with no additional questions, we are going to go ahead and sign off. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time.